Let's start the chapter. He was just a teenager when he died. The last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid to rest, laden with gold and eventually forgotten. So he is Tutankhamun. He was just a teenager when he died. The last heir of a powerful family. So obviously he belonged to the family of pharaohs, the Pharaoh dynasty of Egypt. So they were very powerful and he was the last heir that had ruled Egypt, because after that there was Roman Empire. He was laid to rest, laden with. Laden means loaded with. So he was laid to rest means after that he was buried, loaded with gold and eventually forgotten. So when he died, he was loaded with gold, but by the time he was forgotten by everyone. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, the modern world has speculated about what happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. So then it was in 1922 that his tomb was discovered. The modern world has speculated about what had happened to him. Now there are a lot of questions before us. What had happened to him? How he died? Now leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan. The dead body which died, the person who died centuries ago. Now his dead body has undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death. So these people, the modern world, they try to collect new information and clues about his life and death through CT scan and provides precise data for an accurate forensic reconstruction of the boyish pharaoh. As you know, that emperor, this king, was just a boy. He was only 19 years old. And forensic reconstruction means his face would be recreated with the help of a procedure called forensic reconstruction. Means using some scientific methods and techniques. An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. So here the writer shows some dramatic scene, and it must have happened at the time when his grave was opened. So a fast, strange and unnatural wind, ghostly wind, unnatural wind was blowing as King Tut's body was taken from his grave, and that grave was called Valleys of the Kings, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. Dark-bellied clouds had scudded across the desert sky all day and now were veiling the stars in cascade grey. So dark-bellied clouds means dark in color. Dark clouds moved quickly across the desert all day long and later. As you know that Egypt is a desert. They covered the stars. So unveiling means to cover something. It was 6 p.m. on 5 January. It was 6 p.m. on 5th January 2005. The world's most famous mummy glided head first into a CT scanner brought here to probe the lingering medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. So you have to learn this date, that on January 5th, 2005, and time was 6 p.m. King Tut's mummy, which is the world's most famous mummy, that was placed in the CT scanner to investigate the mystery behind his death, which had occurred more than 3,300 years ago. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped, rock-cut tomb some 26 feet underground to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals on the walls of the burial chamber and peered at Tut's gilded face, the most striking feature of his mummy-shaped outer coffin lid. Some visitors read from guidebooks in a whisper. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering Tut's untimely death in his late teens, or wondering shiver if the pharaoh's curse, death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him was really true. So you can see the meanings of the words here. Murals is a painting or other artwork executed directly on the wall. So all afternoon tourists visited the 26 feet deep underground rock-cut tomb to pay respect to the king. Many people stuffed into the small tomb and looked in admiration at the murals on the walls of the chamber, and took a look at the face of Tut that had been painted with gold. The coffin was of gold. While visitors, they were reading the guidebooks in a hushed tone. Some stood silently, wondering about his untimely death in his teen years, that what was the reason that he died so soon. They might also be wondering if the curse of the pharaoh, which leads to the descent of misfortune upon the person who disturbs him, is true. So actually, after the discovery, there was a worldwide press sensation and stories spread about a curse on anyone who dared to break into a pharaoh's tomb. There is a list of many people who were involved in the discovery of this tomb, and they died. And their death was not natural one. So this rumor, or you can say this thing, spread. I can give you the list that shows about the curse. So in this list, there is the name of Prince Ali Camel Fahmy Bey of Egypt. He was shot dead by his wife in 1923. Then the doctor who supposedly x-rayed the mummy, he also died mysteriously in 1924. Then Sir Lee Stack, the Governor General of the Sudan, who was assassinated in Cairo in 1924. He was also involved in this discovery. Then Arthur Mace of Carter's excavation team. Carter is the one, if you remember, I told you earlier that Carter was the one who started this discovery. So Arthur Mace of Carter's excavation team said to have died of arsenic poisoning in 1928. Carter's secretary Richard Bethel, he also died, and his death was also very mysterious. He murdered in his bed in 1929, and his father who committed suicide in 1930. So it's not that one or two people, there's a long list of people who were involved in some or other way in that discovery. Most people who worked in or visited the tomb lived long lives, but this did not undermine the belief in the curse by those who wanted to believe it. Carter himself angrily dismissed the whole curse idea, but when he died solitary and miserably unhappy, and got a very miserable disease also in his London flat in March 1939, and at the time he was 64 years old. So the story of mummy's curse sprang back to life in his obituaries, and it has persisted to this day. Yes, it was a curse,